Hi everyone, it's Kasia from Tarot Map, and this is another installment in my Inspired Tarot Map series. And this time I'm hosting Maree Bento. Hello, Maree.
Hi.
Hi. Maree is an artist, a diviner, a healer, body worker. You also an indie publisher, and you published already 3 decks. You published Lenormand Oracle deck and a tarot deck, which I found fascinating. And you are also using astrology in your practice and your work, which I also, of course, found fascinating. So because you're a mixer, I had to have you on my tarot map. And also because I love your newest deck. I don't have the other ones, but the Divine Muses Oracle is really fascinating deck. And I wanted to, pick your brains about it. So thank you for agreeing to be a guest on the channel, and welcome to Inspired Tarot Map.
Well, thank you for having me, Kasia. I really appreciate the invitation. So I'm really happy to be here.
Wonderful. So I usually start with asking about ancestry, just because I find it a really interesting question. And I think, we're not living on an island. We come from somewhere. We carry these energies within us. So can you tell us a little bit about your ancestors, where you're from, where you live, and where you're at with your ancestral journey?
Okay. Well, my family, so my last name's Bento and it's Portuguese. And my understanding is, well, both sides of my family are Portuguese from the Azores on the island of Terceira. And I was actually visiting a couple of years ago, speaking with my uncle, and he was able to trace our ancestry on the island, on one part of the family, the maternal part of my father's side. He was able to trace back all the way, I guess they were on the island since the 1400s, Terceira and the Azores, and he was able to trace it back all the way to Portugal, and it was 500 or 600 years ago in Spain, in a city in Spain, which at that time would have been, I think they would have been one, because it would have been Iberian Peninsula. I can't remember the name of it, but they were, I guess it was the Moors were there, and then it was I'm not 100% of the history, but there's some overlap with so my family just have, Iberian, Portuguese, but definitely Catholic, because Catholicism is still the main religion. And so part of my ancestry has Catholicism, and but being on the islands, it was a little different than kind of Roman Catholic, even though it was Roman Catholic on Terceira. It had, my family had this real deep connection to the land. And so there were superstitions and things like that you, when I talk to Catholic people in Portland, I live in Portland, Oregon now in the US, and I've been here for 20 years. But it's interesting when you talk to other people who practice Catholicism, when I talk about, oh yeah, these kind of little superstitions, it's interesting because it doesn't overlap at all. And so it feels a little more, I don't think my mom would think this, more pagan. She wouldn't think that at all. But I think because they were kind of secluded in the family, being on an island, if you think for 400 or 500 years, and even in the 70s, my mom growing up didn't have electricity or plumbing. So they were really connected to the moon cycles and the seasons. And and they farmed. So the moon cycle was really huge. And so, for example, as children, if we wanted to get our hair cut, my mom would look at the calendar and say, oh, it's not the new moon yet. So things like that aren't really very Catholic, but kind of more, I feel connected to the seasons. But my mom wouldn't think of that as very magical, but as I kind of grew into my own spiritual practice, and because I'm not Catholic anymore, I started to realize, wow, this is kind of magical stuff, this, these superstitions. So so that kind of explains, they immigrated. So my family immigrated here in the 70s to the United States in California, and there was a little kind of enclave of Portuguese people there. So that's where I was raised, and I've been here for 20 years. But yeah,
it's really interesting with this Catholic bit, because I think when Christianity was kind of introduced, like it's not swallowed, but it kind of sucked in all those folk religions that were there before, or if not religions, that at least some, customs. And in Poland, it happens all the time when you go to, like, even, when I remember in primary school, we used to burn this, we call it marzanna. So you would do, like, for the spring equinox, we would, like, have this doll made from paper, and we would burn her and throw her into the river. It was still happening. I was doing it when I was a child, and it was definitely not Christian, but it was like a custom, a traditional custom. Goodbye winter, we don't want you, and hello spring, we love you, we just burned winter, so you must come now. So it's interesting, and I truly believe that there is a lot of this, if we want to search for our culture and for our, I think, customs, the older one, we probably will have to look into the Catholic or Christian religion, because that's where you probably find them, because otherwise they disappear.
Yeah, that's interesting, because that's the part of the religion I like, is the devotional practices and the ritual. It feels so ancient. I mean, part of my ancestral work now is like kind of working through the, have you heard of the recovering Catholic?
Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of that whole working with the guilt and working with all that stuff that kind of comes with that. But, on the island in Tristeda, they had these like beautiful rituals after. There's this, have you heard about are you familiar with Tristeda, the island of Tristeda?
No.
It's out in the Atlantic. It's in the Azores. And so in each of the villages, they have these Holy Spirit houses, and they're called imperios. And every year after Easter, so it's kind of similar, where it's like it has a spring connection, but every Sunday they open up the Holy Spirit houses, and they have all of these devotional, like, I don't know what to call them, but I mean, they have, what are they? I guess they're just like statues and like crowns and things like that they store in the houses, and they bring them out and they parade them. And a lot of it is like connected to the cult of Fatima, Nuestra Señora Fatima. Are you familiar with her?
From Fatima,
well,
yeah.
Mary, and the apparitions of I guess it was she appeared. The Virgin Mary appeared to these three children in Fatima, Portugal, and that was in 1917, and that was actually the year my grandmother was born. And so there's this interesting, like, how it just seeped into the culture, into the Catholic, Portuguese Catholic faith. And so my mother's name is Fatima. Like, my grandmother, who was born in 1917, named her daughter Fatima. And so they're really, the devotion to Mary is like really, huge. And I believe I don't know about Spain, but I know for sure Portugal. So it's just got this beautiful like honoring of the feminine.
Beautiful. I know. I would love to go and see Fatima. I'm pretty sure I'm going to go whenever I go to Portugal. I'm not missing on that one, because in Poland, like, we have Mary from Częstochowa, and in general, like, very huge Marian awareness and devotional practices here as well. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And so I feel like part of my work, I mean, you're asking about my ancestral energy, like just kind of tapping into the stuff that they believe, like obviously not Catholic stuff, because I'm not Catholic anymore, but the ritual and like the honoring and like, but also the shadow work that I have to do around like guilt, and then how in Tristeda, in the Azores, I don't know if you know this, but it's a huge eco-tourist spot now. And I really feel like the people who are living there, I feel like it's the ancestors, like, kind of speaking through their bones, because my mother and my grandparents, they just loved the islands. They loved just the volcano and the oceans and like the nature. So they're very like nature connected. And I feel like that I'm kind of tapping into that too. So it was interesting to visit a couple years ago, and just the eco-tourist like trade is just people coming from everywhere just to kind of look at these beautiful places on the island. I feel like it was really powerful. I mean, I think living on a volcano would be pretty powerful energy, and to not be connected to like civilization, but to be kind of like isolated on the island, you just really connect to nature and the seasons and the cycle.
Can also make you go a little bit loopy.
Well,
I'm joking, but you know, sometimes
I
it
would.
depends on some people, and I think probably younger people, they probably wouldn't want it. But I can imagine for older people, or if you really love, not having too much to do with this amazing world we're living in,
Yeah,
it's the perfect spot to hide.
it's isolating. It's very isolating, and then it becomes very like myopic a little bit with like the beliefs, and so it can be a little like narrow-minded, but they're really loving people.
Yeah.
You know, they want to know about what's going on. But I also noticed there's, because a lot of people left because it was so poor, and a lot of people came to America or went wherever else to just, find a better life for themselves, because it was pretty poor and farming was the only thing you did, and it was really hard life. Now they're saying, we have everything now. They're trying to tell people, come back, come like connect with your Azorean roots and your Portuguese roots,
Yeah.
But it's still not the same, because like you said, it's isolating.
Do you speak the language? Do you speak Portuguese?
Oh my gosh. So growing up, it was the first language I knew was Portuguese, because my family spoke it, but I've been here my whole life. And so it's there. Like when I went to Portugal, it comes back, it surfaces back up, and I remember stuff, but it's like, I have to work at it. I have to, but once I was there and everybody was speaking, but now like my family, everybody speaks English here, because that's what we do.
Yeah, but do you understand, like when you were there, could you understand what they're saying?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. Because I have aunts and uncles, and they don't speak English very well, so they'll speak. So this happens a lot with the cousins, where they'll speak to us in Portuguese, and then we'll respond in English.
Yeah, cool. So let's move on to the work you do now. So you've done the Antiquarian Tarot, and I knew from like seeing the tarot and how you wrote a lot about it, in like on your website, because I don't have the tarot, but that you love astrology and that you use astrology also. I don't know if you know astrology very well. Like, can you tell me? Because I'm an astrologer, so I'm kind of fascinated with the subject, and I'm just curious if you use astrology, you love astrology, how well you know astrology, did you study, or like tell me about astrology part of your life.
Okay. Well, I feel like I've been equally as satisfied, like as interested and captivated by astrology as I was about tarot. And I feel like maybe astrology was for like as a teenager. I mean, I don't know how this is for anyone else, but I feel like if you have this interest, it's something that kind of you've always kind of been interested in. And so as a teenager, I was really into mystical things, like reading playing cards, and I had a palmistry book, I had a Ouija board, and I loved reading horoscopes. And so it's just something that's been on my path. So, go to bookstores, I'd go to the mystical section and read about astrology or read about tarot, and I'd get like books, or I'd get books from the library. So it's just been something I've been studying. At first, of course, it was like sun signs, and then I went into the moon, and then I started expanding it. So my knowledge is I can read natal charts, I can read transits. I like to read, like I like to pull, like if a client, if I'm doing longer like card reading sessions, I like to pull the chart and see what's happening in the chart, because I find it really relevant, as you probably know. Because a lot of times their questions are so it's just highlighted in the natal chart. And so it's nice to kind of, communicate that with my client and just say, hey, like you're asking about your relationship, or you're having issues with that. Well, this is interesting, you have Pluto here in your relationship house or something. And then we can pull cards, and I'll do the birth cards at the beginning. Do you do that, where it's just like the numerology?
I don't do the birth card. So tell us, so you just use the birthday, like how do you do the birth card? Because there's so many different ways. What's your way?
Well, I learned it from Mary K. Greer and the Tarot for Yourself. And so I just, add up the birthday and then the number. There might be one number or two numbers. And so the, like if there's two numbers, the first number would be like the life purpose card. And then the one, and when you, add it up, it becomes soul purpose, and I'll do it for the year too. So I'll say, oh, here's your year card. So I'll do their birthday with plus like 2019 or something, add that up for the numerology. And I'll say, oh, here's the energy you're working with this year. And then here's the energy you're working with, you know, for life purpose and then soul purpose.
Okay, cool. So
and so I'll just like have that out before, like if I'm online or if somebody comes and gets a reading in my studio downstairs, I'll already have the cards out for them. Cause it's like, oh, here's like like if I'm going to do and sometimes if I'm doing an event and I'll be curious, I'll just ask, I'll have my phone and I'll just kind of do a quick like calculator check, like, okay, when's your birthday? And then that will it'll be interesting to see like how that plays out, like in a reading too.
Can I ask you about your astrology, like sun, moon, and ascendant, or is it too?
No.
Okay?
No. So I'm sun sign, I'm a Capricorn moon, and I'm a Libra ascendant.
And what was sun sign? Sorry, because
Sun Sagittarius.
Sagittarius, yes. Sister Sagittarius.
Are you a Sagittarius?
I'm a Sagittarius sun as well, but ascendant in Leo and moon in Libra.
Oh, moon Libra?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not okay. Yeah.
So that's cool. Okay, and what I find fascinating when I was reading, you know, like little bits and pieces on your website, that you also introducing different modalities in your work. So you use, as we just saw, astrology, but you also done a lot of body work. Do you kind of, because when you have a client probably face to face, maybe do you do also some body work on them? Or I've seen that you do sound healing as well and things like forks. Can you tell me a bit more? Because that's interesting. I think it's, you know, I'm a mixer. I would like to throw everything into a session. But
well, I love that you call it mixers. I like that. I never thought of it that way. I like it. Well, I started off being a body worker. So, you know, I'm a licensed massage therapist, Reiki master, and I've practiced other modalities. And I started doing that 15 years I've been licensed, 16 years practicing. So I was a chiropractic assistant as well. And I started bringing in the tarot cards that direction. So after, like if somebody on the table, because it's interesting, you get somebody on a massage table and things come up. And so sometimes I would say, oh, let me get my deck out. And so I'll pull up a couple cards and it would just kind of turn into this kind of synergistic session. And now recently in the last couple of years, because I've been like astrology has been a little bit more in depth, and I've been studying tuning fork therapy. And what I found is after doing like a card reading for someone, because a lot of times people will come and, I mean, this is obviously face to face, it's better to do this. And you know, if I was doing like a Lenormand reading or like a Grand Tableau, and sometimes it can be kind of intense. And so like, depending on the energies that are coming up, or if I'm just doing a regular reading and somebody's going through grief or anxiety, there's different protocols that you can do with tuning forks. So if somebody's experiencing grief, I can do like a grief protocol either before or after, generally after. So if I'm doing a reading and they get a little clarity, they might still feel the grief, of course, because grief is kind of a process. But the tuning fork therapy it's like another level. It's so interesting because I've been doing body work for 15 years, and sometimes you just kind of see the same clients, and you know, the blockages can kind of just stick around. But after doing like a card reading and kind of exploring just whatever, for example, I'm just going to go with the grief experience, like example, where someone's going through loss or loss of relationship, and put them on a table, and I'll do this grief protocol with tuning forks, and it really just helps like the energy dissipate because like sound healing, it's resonance. And so our body, like if we're experiencing energy in our body, it's a certain resonant, like a certain frequency. So sound healing has this amazing potential to kind of break up like stagnant energy, or, you know, it's not meant to be like, oh, shift you. It's not meant to be like, oh, you got to change your, you know, the way you feel. It's more like shift it. Like, can we shift that energy just a bit so that you can feel better? Like walking out.
Because, you know, I've got those energy chimes, and they call like chakra chimes, but they great. I even use them in my videos at the end sometimes for, you know, like just for certain chakras, and I find like I would love to learn more about the sound healing, because I love the vibrational medicine and vibrational just the idea of how, you know, we are energetic bodies, and how we can, the sound has this great ability to realign something beyond words and beyond our understanding or intellectual, you know, capacity, which I think it's great to mix with. Then you have the words and you have the image and you have the sound of the body. It's really cool.
Yeah, because everything resonates. Every single thing resonates on a particular frequency. The earth, you know, every planet, like everything in our body, our organs, every different organ resonates at a different frequency. And so if you can find the right frequency, you can create healing. You can create, you know, it's really just about, you know, dissonance versus resonance. You know, if there's a dissonance frequency, you can break that up and bring in a resonant frequency to replace it.
Yeah, this is really cool. It's a fascinating subject. But tell us more about the decks. So what made you even start doing decks and writing books? So as I said, you've done Lenormand, Antiquarian Lenormand, Antiquarian Tarot, and now the Divine Muses Oracle. And how did you start? Like, where did it come from, and why all these different systems? You didn't just stick to oracles or just to tarot. You went for all of them, which is cool. Tell us.
Well, I guess I just love, first of all, I love collage. I love working with my hands. It feels like, to me, I have a practice of feng shui. I have a feng shui. I studied that too. My mentor, teacher, she's like a really good friend of mine, actually. She like, I went to her school, her feng shui school. And so I feel like it's like kind of like feng shui. And so I really was into it. And since I was collecting, of course, I don't know how many, I don't know if you collect decks. I have a feeling you do.
Oh, yeah.
You do.
I have like millions of decks.
Yeah. So I was doing that, and it was like that thing where, you know how you're always looking for, you're just looking for the right deck or whatever.
But there's always this one card that doesn't work, or yeah.
So I had always had that feeling that I wanted to create a deck. I mean, since I was like 20 or something, where I'm like, I want to make my own deck. And I was in like college studying art, and I was like, oh, it'd be really cool to make my own deck. But I don't know, it came to a point where I started studying Lenormand, and it was like, what year was that, like 2011, and I had a friend of mine who created a deck. She did a tarot, and I was like, oh my gosh, it just like kind of inspired me. And I was like, you know, maybe I'll just start with the, like, you know, Lenormand, because it's 36 cards. It's like, I can do that. So I just made it. I just created it, and then I did a little white book for it. And I was so just like, I don't know the word, just energized from that. I was like, so if I could do 36, I could do double that. So then I created the tarot deck, and, you know, gathering images. I love old photography, and I love collecting cabinet cards, and, you know, sometimes I have to look online for the right image for the card. And so I just started putting it together. And then when that deck was done, a friend of mine kept asking, you know, are you going to write a book? Are you going to write a book? And, you know, then I started hearing from people who were buying my decks, like, are you going to write a book? And I didn't consider myself a writer at all. But I love to read, and I love like researching, and I just have that kind of mind. My Sagittarius is in the 3rd house. Mercury's in the 3rd house. Just to kind of give you an idea, it's just like, I just love to learn and love like information. And so I was actually, my friend, the feng shui teacher, she's like she's a feng shui master. She's incredible. She's like amazing. Anyway, that's a rabbit hole. But she convinced me to do it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to write the book. So it took a year to write the book. And so then, you know, you create the, you know, Lenormand, and then you create the, you know, tarot. Then you're just like, well, I kind of wanted to explore something outside of the structure, because within those structures, you can kind of get limited, especially with when you're using like cabinet card and old photography, and, you know, trying to find things like I try to find things in like a antique shop or flea market, and you find things, but it would, you know, you're kind of limited to, you know, what you find. And so I had to look online too. So this way, with the Divine Muses Oracle, I was like, I'm just gonna like find things, and whatever inspires me, I'm gonna create. So yeah, so I got into that, and it was really interesting. And I would tap into kind of the archetypes that I was experiencing in my life, or I'd be inspired by a certain image and create it. So.
And when you did the Antiquarian Tarot, you wanted to mix astrology into it. Did you use Tough Deck as a your kind of like, or did you? Because I don't know your tarot. Did you put an astrological association based on Golden Dawn, or?
Yeah, it's Golden Dawn. It's the Golden Dawn association, and then the colors and like the coloration system is based on Paul Foster Case, which is what he developed that, but his astrology is different than Golden Dawn. So I just studied the Golden Dawn, and connected it to that because I feel like that's a little bit more known, and so I was trying to make it the deck, like I wanted to learn it, but I also wanted it to be like people could connect with it too.
And can I ask you, like when you were doing your decks, were you also working full time, or was it something that you chose to do? It's like your job. I'm just asking because, you know, sometimes people want to do something that's really they're passionate about, and they either feel like they have to quit their job to do it, or they struggle, you know, like how did you do it? Did you do it after hours or?
Well, so I'm a body worker, so I have a studio at home, so I could just like adjust my hours to it. So I used to do 4 days of massage and body work, and then I cut down to 3 days. And so then the other 2 days, well, basically it kind of consumed my life, because you know when you get into something and you're just like, when you have the passion, you just kind of get into it, you just tap into that flow, because you know sometimes you lose the flow, and that's kind of part of creativity, you know, there's that struggle. So I would just just like do it around my hours.
Yeah. So with the book, because now I'm thinking, this is so cool. Did you just like you set yourself days to write, and you just basically wrote on those days?
Yeah, you definitely. And with the Divine Muses Oracle, so with the, you know, the Antiquarian Tarot, I did the deck first, and then I wrote the book, and it took a year each. So it took a year to do the deck, and then when I was convinced, it was like, okay, it was like basically a full year writing the book. But with the Divine Muses Oracle, I wanted to try to do both. I was like, okay, I got to try to do both, because I don't want to just do all the writing at once. But it's impossible, because like in the beginning, I would start with the deck, like the cards, you know, creating the cards, and I would, you know, write about it. So sometimes you get hits as your
uploads. Yeah.
Like the information comes in, and you're like, I got to write this down, you know, because sometimes you go in, you know, I'll go into the studio with this idea, and as I'm creating the card, it'll just be like this epiphany, and then I have to write it down. So then I'll spend time writing. But then I got into being really generative, like just all my creative energy was just wanting to create cards. So I was just like, so it got to the point where I finished the cards, and then ended up having to write the book. And the book, I think, was like 6 to 8 months or something at the end.
But one of my questions was about the book, because, you know, it's quite substantial. It's not big in a sense of big, but I was actually really surprised and like positively surprised how deep this book goes about archetypes, and how much you wrote about it. And because you picked also different like actors and actresses, and different alchemical system as well, and all these amazing archetypes, I was just going, wow. I was surprised how cool this book is. You used the regular meanings, the shadow meanings, the little, you know, kind of what the symbols mean in the cards, and it reads so well. I actually think this is really a little gem for this oracle, and I think it actually complements the images so much, because, you know, with the images, obviously we each make our own associations, and I think there probably is some kind of common, you know, collective unconscious when we draw from. But I really love this book. You did such a good job. Like one of my question was like, wow, how long did it take to write this book? Because there's a lot of research that went into this book.
Oh yeah. I have a bibliography, and actually there was a book I forgot, Carl, like I'm just gonna share this, like the thing that I forgot like Carl Jung's book Man and His Symbols. That was like a big, you know, and I forgot it in the bibliography. So anyway, I'm gonna have to add that at the next reprint. But
Yeah, it's
research.
really cool. So well done. Now I can see the third house really, coming into blossoming. It just comes forth and creates and writes. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
I have a
Yeah.
stellium. I have a stellium in the third house. Of Neptune's in there too, and Mars and Mercury and and the Sun, Sag.
Yeah.
It's all Sag.
Yeah, I've got a Pluto and Venus in the third house, but in Libra there.
Oh,
So
deep.
also, transformative.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get there. Maybe I'll write something too at some point.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so can I ask you about your your own deck? Do you use your own deck? Do you use it? You
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
Muses Oracle?
Yeah.
And how do you use it? Do you just shuffle and pull a card, or do you have a special way? I know you wrote it here, but what's your favorite?
Well, I have things I do. Sometimes I'll shuffle it with my tarot deck. So I'll have one big deck with the two, and that's kind of fun. Or I'll do a tarot reading. I'll pull one or two cards if I'm doing for someone else. Are you asking about how I read with somebody else or for myself?
For yourself.
For myself, yeah. I'll do a daily draw. I'll use sometimes I'll just if I'm wanting to contemplate or sit, or if I'm doing a yoga practice or stretching practice or something like that, I'll pull a card before and kind of tap into a daily message, something like that. Or sometimes if I the Muses, I kind of wanted to use the Muses since it's Divine Muses Oracle. I wanted to bring them in because I like to tap into the different creative, energies. And so if I want, to tap into a certain muse, I'll put her on my altar and kind of work with her, and actually do that with any of the other cards too. That's one when I'll put on the archetype and explore it, have it surface in my whatever I'm working on.
So what's your favorite tarot system if we talk about divination now?
Oh.
Is it Marseille, Toff, Rider-Waite-Smith, or?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it would be the Rider-Waite-Smith for sure if I'm gonna pick. I'm gonna pick one. But I do like the Toth deck too. But I definitely, most of my decks are that
Smith based.
Smith-Waite, yeah.
Yeah. And what's your favorite tarot deck right now? You have one or two?
Right now, oh my gosh. I was thinking about that because I was talking to a friend of mine about that, and what I was saying, I was like, it's really hard to pick because it depends on the seasons, and the events or whatever I'm doing. But right now, I'm loving. What I'm using right now is the Wunderland Tarot, and do you know that one? It's a U.S. Games one.
The one with Alice. Yes.
So I know that one. Yeah. That one, and the Daughters of the Moon.
Yeah, the round one.
This one, So I'm really loving that one. Actually, I pulled this card today. Before.
Woo! Two Sagittarians.
Yeah.
Jumping through the ether.
And I really love working with the Victorian Romantic and I recently acquired Victoria Regina Tarot, and I freaking love that deck. I had a good friend who had that deck, and for years, I never acquired that deck because it went out of print. But I would just use her. We'd hang out, and I just used her deck, and I really loved that deck, and that was fine. But she moved away. And when she moved last year, I was like, I need that deck in my life. So anyway, I really like that. That's just really beautiful.
Yeah. And do you use mix, for example, in your readings, do you mix Lenormand and tarot in one reading? So for example, you do Lenormand and then you pull tarot cards to decipher more messages or give depth or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, have to. I feel like I have to.
Yeah, cool. Me too. I'm always, my readings are tarot, maybe another tarot deck, maybe a few oracle decks, maybe a little bit something else, and astrology to throw into it.
Yeah, if I'm doing a grand tableau, then that takes a lot of time.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we're going to slowly close it off, I wanted to ask also about like a special maybe way you can share with the listeners how you play with cards, but we kind of discussed it. Unless you have another something you can share with us that people maybe could try at home, or you know, maybe something special you do or something that you just do.
Well, I guess I did kind of
Yeah, we kind of mentioned I like the birth cards that you do and that you mix as well, but maybe you think of something. Give yourself a second.
Yeah, well, I think I don't know, did I mention how it's like just wearing the card, like wearing the archetype in the card? That's kind of interesting if you need, like, I think I did mention that a little bit, but where if you're needing courage, or like if I need like courage before an event, or if I need, you know, to tap into a certain energy or an archetype, I'll pull that card and kind of tap into the archetypal energy in the card. It's like, oh, I want to be like this. Like, I need to feel that way. And it might seem inauthentic, but it's like, we're all really just, we all wear our masks in the world. We're all like, have a persona. And so if you need help with something, why not like grab a card and say, hey, I want to really explore, you know, the star. I want to feel that clarity of the star, or I want to feel, or maybe you do want to like break up with someone or whatever, and you're like, I need to bring the Tower card in, or I don't know, like I don't think anyone would willingly yeah, I don't know if anyone willingly would want to put the Tower card on.
I actually love Tower card. I mean, love, like it's not like, you know, obviously it's kind of a love fear relationship somehow, but I don't know, I'm one of those people, I'm just not afraid to get down to shit. And like Tower always, it's freeing, like it always is freeing. It can be hard, it's harder when you hold on to it, but if you want to willingly explore stuff, like I love Tower. And I repeat it constantly because it was one of Tower's lesson to me when I just started reading a few years ago. I had one of the clients, and they wanted to expand their business, and I got Tower, and I felt like, it might be stressful, like blah, blah, blah. What do you say when you see Tower? You kind of go, well, not very good, right? Like, mate, I don't know, something might go really wrong. And I'm trying not to, I stopped, I don't really read this way, but anymore. But then I was trying to learn tarot, and I was doing this few bucks readings just to practice. And she taught me this Tower from that reading, which I remember unto this day. The girl has expanded her business. She actually she had to renovate an old kind of house and make it bigger, and this business has grown, because before she was working for someone, she had only a station, she's a hairdresser, and then it was just rebuilt and bigger and better, and she had to do renovation, so destroy things and kind of allow herself to grow out of this limitation that she felt. And this always comes with me for Tower, so I'm I'm grateful to Tower. I like Tower.
I like it. Renovation. You need a renovation.
Exactly. It's like foundations that go shake it up a bit. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But in this regard, I think every tarot card has plus and minus. It's not like, oh, sun is so good. Like, sun can be bloody annoying when somebody's constantly in your face and like, look at me, I did so cool and I did so great, and the ego bigger than I don't know what. So
narcissism.
Yeah. So I think every card can give you the good bits and the bit more annoying bits. But yeah, it's fascinating. I so love tarot. So thank you so much, Maree, for creating this amazing deck. I'm it's still pretty new to me, so I'm still getting to know it and use it. But this is the card that I constantly keep pulling, the Solar Feminine, which I love that you twisted this way. That there's the Lunar Masculine and Solar Feminine. This is so cool, because I think that's where we're heading towards in some way, of really mixing those archetypal energies within ourselves and in our world. And I think then it will be better for us when we kind of balance those archetypes within.
Yeah, we live in a different world too, and so it's nice to look at things on a spectrum, that not everything is black and white. And what happens when you merge energies?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's various degrees and how we, you know, how we feel, we, you know, what we need. So yeah, it's fascinating. And I think what you said about like this wearing the archetype, or, you know, like using the image to actually boost something in your life or get rid of something in your life, this is a really beautiful way to do, like I call it always like Khodorovsky, you know, the psycho magic, like a little ritual to show that you are really ready to, you know, integrate what the message from the card is. And I think this is really cool. So thank you so much for creating the decks, for writing, for inspiring me personally here. Maybe I'm going to write something too.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to hang
Yeah,
out
it was lovely to meet you. Yeah, it was really lovely to meet you and get to know you. And I hope that people will take a look at your decks and your work, and you also do readings. So whoever is in Portland, Oregon, yeah, can contact you. I will link your website below in the description box. So if anyone resonates, please go and check Maree out. And again, thank you so much, Maree. I'm going to stop recording. So thanks everybody for watching, and I see you another time for another inspired tarot map. Bye.
Bye.